Why we need heroes, I'll let you say why I believe we need heroes. And I think we need heroes because when you live in a society that's become dysfunctional and all the men have become very, very weak and all the women have become very feminist, which means selfish, the men have become chauvinist, which is selfish, you have not and both the parents when they were younger adored idols like rock stars, TV stars. I mean, imagine adoring someone just because they brought out a song. I mean, sure, love the song, enjoy the song, but don't adore them. Adore means you're putting them above you. That's why I'll never sign autographs, because it's like me saying to you, if I sign the autograph, I'm someone for you to adore, and my scribble is worth something to you. It's like you're putting yourself down, standing in line, wanting my signature. And so I will never do that. I think it's very silly. And I never asked for signature. We need, so leaders or heroes are the people where for me as a child, my father was a womanizer, he was an alcoholic, he hung out with gangs, he was into drug abuse, and he was sex crazy. Mum was practically exactly the same, but as a female feminist. So I needed someone to look up to because I didn't like what I was seeing at home. It really broke my heart. And as a child, and I'd go and I know a lot of bad things have been said about John Wayne, and because he had some prejudice issues, like most people these days, and so he's been highly insulted. Yeah, and I've read about two books, biographies of him, and some of the stuff I didn't like about him, but I did like the movies because the movies were based on being a person of courage, of strength, not of fear. Oh, I mean, you were scared. He's one who's got the famous quote. Even if you're shaking in your shoes or something, saddle up and go do it. Anyway, it's not about whether you're scared with your body's reacting and sweating, and you're sweating and you're shaking and your heart's thumping. It's about doing it anyway. It's about doing the thing you need to do. It's not about letting the fear overcome you. And so, as a child, I was often called a few times I was called a coward, and going to school and getting beaten up by older kids, bigger kids, and more kids. Like 4-1, and I had to. I already tried to commit suicide at 8, and then later on at about 13. So I needed something all through those years to hold me up. There's nothing at home to hold me up. And so I needed hope. And hope came in Zorro and um, cowboy movies. Chuck Norris wrote about the exact things. It said the exact same thing. The Westerns, Jimmy Stewart, Henry Fonda, John Wayne, all those types of people, not probably their personal life, but the movies they portrayed, they were in, and the honor and dignity and strength and the desire to do the right thing, but to do it not so much with style, but to do it honorably. And as Chuck Norris said, or Carlos, he said it gave him guidance where he didn't have any at home from his father. And so I think his father was an alcoholic and wasn't there much. Ended up leaving. And so having those heroes gave me something to believe in. Even if for many years I wasn't a hero, it gave me something to believe in, something to dream about. Often I dream about being a knight or being a gunfighter, trying to protect some woman and her children or something. And I just needed something to tell me there was a right and a wrong, a good and a bad, and an evil and good, and I needed to know which side I wanted to be on. So it was me saying to myself, "Hey, look, I want the good guy to win, so I want to be on there." So later on, when there were TV programs when I was a teenager and repeats, we used to, when I was working, I'd go to work, and the guys who were into drug abuse, illegal stuff, and that were in a smoke room would talk about the hero cops on the movies and how great it was they got the bad guys. And I used to stare at them like, shouldn't you be on the bad guy's side? I think it was hysterical that they're actually backing up the good guys. And of course you do back up the good guys. And maybe that it's kind of probably in their homes, they probably came from bad homes and toxic relationships and stuff like that. So the TV shows which they liked would have hopefully influenced them for the better when they had families themselves and became better people. So I think we need heroes to give us, especially our children, something, especially the children who don't have heroes in their lives personally, to show us the difference between good and bad. A good example is so many people have idols, which are hopeless rock stars, movie stars, and all that. They're not like their movies and like the music, like Pet Sounds, but don't idolize them. I see, like with Pet Sounds, Brian Wilson, I see his life as a very much a lesson on toxic family dysfunction, unrecognized, undiagnosed depression and anxiety, agoraphobia, being wealthy but not having anyone that help you. And so there's a lot to learn, plus it's good music. And but then I see in other ones, I don't know, I just don't like to see people dedicate their life to music and people who are not worth it, who are just leading down a worse path. So the hero is the person who comes into town, finds something bad, and because they're a good person, they get pushed around, and then eventually they end up taking on the bad guys and winning. And that's what I find encouraging, and I found very, very encouraging as a child, because if I didn't have those heroes, I would have had nothing to show me the difference between right and wrong. I knew I could feel it living in the house I lived in, and the violence and the things that were happening. I just knew there was God. But if it weren't for the TV programs that I watched, I wouldn't have seen it in action. And mind you, you meet people during your life as you grow up, and they're good people, so that helps. But sometimes you have adults who take advantage of you, abuse you in family and stuff like that. The biggest child abusers that exist are family, and it's horrible to think that adult family member will sexually or physically or emotionally abuse a child when they know the child can't defend themselves. And the trust between that adult and that child is abuse so indecently. And they can even talk the child into loving and caring for them while they are abusing them and protecting them if there's a case that they could be caught out for doing the abuse. But it's a huge darkness to do that to a person who innocently loved up you with much love, trust, and belief in you. So, yeah. And I've read a lot of stories about people who have been abused by their parents and how they wanted heroes and they needed heroes. And some of them might, you see, there's like a few movies about it where children go to own abusive homes and They meet a rugby coach or a basketball coach or a sports coach, and that sports coach kind of becomes their hero, or a school teacher, or it could be even just a rubbish man. And they just strike up a friendship, or a martial arts teacher, and they strike up a friendship that grows on to being something really special, and it lifts that kid out of what they were going through. And so we need heroes, and you got the case of Clary, Johnny Lee Clary, where his sister kicked him out, her boyfriend beat him and kicked him out, and he was taken by the Ku Klux Klan. To Clary, the Ku Klux Klan became his heroes, and he became a black person hater. And so we need heroes that have strong moral strength, not just strong people. They need to have dignity, but they also need to be strong in the knowledge of right and wrong, and then they won't shine for the younger people in a nasty way or in a toxic way. They'll just make them toxic. And there was a story here in New Zealand where they took a married boy from his parents because they were abusing him, gave him to an uncle who had a criminal record, and the uncle ended up in the guy, I think it's about 14 years, they got done for raping a woman. So we need real heroes, decent, good people, and all children out there. They need, I honestly wish they could find their heroes in their mother and father. I wish the mother was strong enough to stand up against any man and say, I'm protecting my kids before my family, before you, before anything, for the whole of society. My children come first. And the father would do the same. He'd protect his children, and to his death. And same with the mother. And today we get a lot of unconfident parents who've brought up in toxic, abusive, dysfunctional homes, and they're cowards. It's not their fault they're cowards, but they're cowards as a result from the life that they've been brought up in. And so their children are brought up with parents who'd sell them out, or he would sexually abuse them, or physically or emotionally, or they take pleasure in hurting them. And they think, oh, it's just a wonderful thing to go home and beat up the kid after a bad day's work because they didn't have the courage to take on someone at work. I've met people like that, and I've been at the wrong end of people like that. It's horrible to live through. So we need genuine heroes. We need John Waynes, Jimmy Stewarts. We need like Esther's from the Bible, and Ruth, and people who are strong. And when it comes to standing up, they stand up. And even though they know all the chips are down, they still stand up. And we need heroes for that. Every single parent out there, its children, needs them to be the hero, to protect them, to save them from, all things that are bad, and to give them a decent moral upbringing while also, because that's protecting them from immorality, indecency, and violence and abuse and the like, and giving them courage from seeing their parents be courage. When you see dad go up and stand up against some other guy who said something nasty about his wife or something, you think, yeah, that's how a man protects his woman. I'm going to be like dad. And when you see the mother protect your husband from another woman, and she sits in there and one other woman's coming on to him, and the kid says, yeah, that's how you protect your marriage. And you see what I mean? I'm getting that. We need, children need those examples. If we don't have those examples, it's terrible. And then you've got the bad examples that are seen as good examples. And people brought up in criminal homes, the children defend their parents. They love and adore their parents. And if the parents say, protect me, when the children are adults, for the abuse they did to their children, the children will protect their parents. It's one of the most horrible things to witness. And the children, adult children, don't get it that their parents abused them and destroyed their lives. They, it doesn't click for some reason. Probably it's Stockholm syndrome, protecting their captors and the ones who abuse them, and like Patty Hearst, and then defending, and she ended up riding with them into, which means rob banks with them. So, and they were the people who'd raped, beaten, and done horrible things to her, but they twisted around with sympathy for them, and then she felt so sorry for them, and she was in survival mode anyway. She knew it was the only way that was going to keep her alive, so she banded with them and ended up going to jail and everything. So she had no idea what she was doing was wrong, because in the end they convinced her that wrong was right. And parents do that with their children, and the children grow up thinking that all the wrong that their parents have done to them are right. And their parents, even though they abuse their own children, are seen as the heroes to the children. And that's just terrible, because then the children end up doing what the parents did. And yeah, so I believe we need heroes, and we should have heroes on TV, and they should be good people, and they should be decent people. And we need heroes in politics, and we don't have any. I haven't seen one for many, many years, and I don't think any exist. So they're there for the career and the money, and they can gain from it, being part of history. A bit like the Roman leaders back in the days of Jesus, where they all thought they were going to be in history forever. And they're not. Most of us only remember a few of them. If you become a religious person or historian, you learn of some of them, and what happened with Brutus and Caesar and things like that, Cleopatra. But in general, most people have no idea who they are. So being famous is only for a while. But real heroes make a difference. They change lives, and they give children someone to look up to. There was that guy from Fair Go. I can't remember his name. He was camping with his kids. They went on a camping trip, and they're all young children. And he got out of his tent in the morning. And he was puffing a cigarette, and then it just clicked. And he looked at the kids, and he thought, "What kind of example am I giving the children?" And he realized he was, giving a terrible example. So he put a smoke out and never smoked again. He gave up, and that's what we need to do today. The young parents are so dedicated, or dysfunctional, or toxicated, or brought up in parents who don't know how to be parents fully. And it's not the parents' fault. It's because their parents didn't. And they don't know how to give up things for their children. They can't figure it out because they're not fully complete themselves, immature in the sense of responsibility, in the sense of courage and strength. And immature means they just haven't matured, they haven't grown. If they were strong enough, all mothers would give up smoking because they're pregnant. All mothers would, and all fathers will do certain things. They'd go up and things for their children instead of demanding or pushing their children's lives around, so the children give up stuff for the parents, which is very common these days. The parents think, well, I've got to look after myself, don't I? In the old days, you sacrifice for your children, so we need heroes, and the children need heroes. So that's my take on that anyway. Why I believe we need heroes.